Hello, everybody. As someone who has a scary amount of hours in the hit game Hearts of Iron 4, I've gotten a bit accustomed to slightly funny scenarios and game exploits that you can do, and today I'll be showing one of my absolute favorites. This is just one of the few that you can do that are quite funny Germany exploits. They don't really serve much purpose outside of adding some entertainment value and easiness to the game, but nevertheless they can be done in Ironman mode and historical AI focuses on. So I'll just show them to you real quick. In this one, we'll be attempting to take over the United States as Germany in 1937. And you may be asking yourself, well, how's that possible? As Germany, you only have 73 factories in all, which count as the in-game currency. In the US, if you check at the beginning of the game, has over 130 civilian factories and 10 mills, in addition to 22 dockyards. In addition to that, all the ships we can have can only reach the Barents of the North Sea and English Channel, meaning theoretically that we would have to invade England, who has a much significant navy than ours, theirs being more significant at over 284 warships, while ours is only capped at 38, making an almost 10 times difference, emphasizing the fact that we would need to not only annex all of the United Kingdom, but then annex some of its colonies in order to bridge ahead all the way to Canada without researching US tech to then invade the United States. Or alternatively, we could go down a route where Mexico joins a faction and then annex Mexico. However, with historical focuses enabled, this is hardly noticeable or hardly could be done. However, there is an alternate route, and this route begins with deleting your army. You heard me right. You won't need an army for this one, at least not until later. Then it's much better to start the game prep, and I always do this by deleting all my airplanes. It's always better to research civilian factories and particularly put them in the east, and you'll see why later, because no damage can be dealt to them. For the free military factories, it's way better to just manufacture some convoys and then just do some infantry equipment for land leasing later. And the research won't really be an important part of this as we're trying to get the US in 1947, so we might as well just research random things that will take us forever, so that way we don't have to stress too much about clicking new research. This is not the right way to do it, but this is the way I do it. And additionally, it's also way better to put all of our ships in the same place. We will also disband the new Special Projects Factory that just came out in the latest update, as we won't need it. And it's also helpful to disband our faction altogether. And we're also not going to do a focus. So you may be asking me, but what is this for? We've now got an empty country without anything in it except for our few factories. We have no army, no focus, all of our navy is put into one yard, and all of our airplanes are in reserve over one single location. How are we going to get across the Atlantic Channel? Well, this is simple. First of all, we're going to need exactly 50 full political power to justify in France. And I'm going to pause as soon as I have accomplished that amount of political power. I can alternatively generate world tension by justifying directly under the United States with multiple states, but this would take forever and delay my war goal justifications. So it's better to do it on France as early as you can. And there we go, exactly 51 political power at 1 a.m. on the 22nd of January 1936. With that, I will now justify on Alsace-Lorraine. Alternatively, I can also justify on Belgium, meaning that Britain also gets in a faction. With France, it would be quite possible to actually get Britain in the faction, but this is always a game of chance. But we'll simply wait and see. In the meantime, since we're not justifying on Belgium, it might be a better idea to justify on some more countries, as our current war goal will only generate 19% world tension, which will not be enough for the United Kingdom to guarantee France in case of an invasion. So, as previously mentioned, we need to justify on the United States. And for this, we'll need around 70 political power. Keep in mind, the war on the United States will never actually be declared, at least not until later. The way that we actually get the political power and the world tension up is unrelated to the United States as a whole. We will simply be justifying on nations and then hoping that the UK guarantees them once enough world tension is generated. And per the UK's rules, this has to be at least 20. And they also start out with a base guarantee by Belgium. which we will avoid for now. As for the focuses, since we're no longer seeking any political power, it might be a good idea to do a focus like straight into Kriegsmarine, as it takes not a lot of time, we can always have more time to acquire political power, and will help us in the long run. In the meantime, it's best to generate as much world tension as possible. So the second biggest country that will generate world tension is likely the Soviet Union, and we need just 150 political power for that. It might also be a good idea to cancel the MIFO bills now, and you'll see why later. I'm also doing Plan Z as my focus, and it seems that my political power is brought down by some of the new events involving Austria, so I'll have to wait a little longer to justify the Soviets, although it seems that we're already at 22% world tension. And it seems that Britain is already guaranteeing France, per my suggestion. But it's all but it's always better to get the world tension as high up as possible, just in case. Yup. And it seems that our justification on France is already complete. Now, as you may note in the title of this video and in the general description that I've provided, we will be trying to get America by 1947. Keep in mind it is already the 1st of October 1946, as we're allowed to declare war. So very quickly, I'll justify on the Soviet Union. And in addition to that, we'll have a workaround. I'm going to cancel my justification on the United States, and I'm going to make it until around 270 days later. Alternatively, if we want to do this in 1937 as promised, it's way better to actually delay this and put it back here. This way it will take 180 days and take approximately 62% world tension. So this will shorten us quite a bit. Now what we want to do is we want to declare war on France and promptly lose. You'll see why this matters later. So, Germany at war again. A bunch of nations have been called into war, but importantly, the United States has now joined the Allies faction. We want to avoid this for as long as possible. And since the world tension isn't at 80% yet, and I haven't justified on the Soviet Union as of right now, it seems that America has no reason to join the faction, for now. So we want to lose before the world tension gets to exactly 80%, which we will capitulate quite soon, as we can see with the Belgium making overturns here. Come on, come on. Oh, there we go. And just as expected, the peace conference has ended. Now, what happened here? We're now a democracy. But as you may notice, literally none of our land was taken away. We did suffer some losses. We lost over 15 ships of our navy, and they were destroyed by the British fleet. But we still have 5 left. And this 5 will be very important. We can join it with the other 18 in the same port that we had them before, and hire the same admiral that we had before, as now we have retained our sovereignty, and they will allow us to make the further game much easier. Now, as you may notice, we are still justifying in the United States. So how will we invade them? Well, since we're now a democracy, and the world tension is above 80%, beep, just like that. Now what you want to do is you want to hire this guy, Ludwig Beck, and start on doing the high seas fleet focus. Additionally, it's very important to start pumping out as many cavalry divisions, as they're the lowest division that you have, and it might actually be helpful to design them earlier in the game if you don't want to cause a challenge to yourself. I'm sort of an expert player, so I gotta handle this, and we can expect to pump out these cavalry divisions sooner than expected. Once we got a couple of them, we'll just put them in an army group right here. And it might be best to get as many of those convoys that we manufactured before and actually buy some more. We'll buy around 80 from the UK with some of the civs that they left over for us. Oh, and it seems they won't sell us any. Despite us being in the same faction. This is quite concerning. Didn't happen to me in earlier games. Well, anyways, we still got a lot of them. And just enough to get over 20 cavalry divisions. Keep in mind, once we declare in the United States, we won't have to go to war with them instantly. We can always just not call our other faction members in, and that way they'll have no way of reaching us in the early game of 1936 and 1937. But it is always better to consider the possibility that doing this quicker will allow us to conquer the United States quicker, and by early 1937. So, alternatively, we could have also researched tanks to speed up the process, but this would have taken a toll on our industry. Yep. Hmm. We can no longer do this focus, so I guess we'll just have to bypass the Rhineland. And there we go. And now we can pretty much do whatever we want in this pretty much fascist focus tree. So, since we can't do anything with these focuses now, we'll just do the 4-year plan and get some civs. Well, we're bumping out mills pretty quick, so I guess we'll just get them overseas and use our convoys. And use our convoys. Well, let's reorganize the Wehrmacht really quick. And let's get some consumer goods factories as well. Let's deploy these cavalry divisions and get them overseas. And it might actually be better to lower the capacity of the cavalry divisions so that they can render quicker. We'll make them special forces as well. And spam a whole lot of them so they can get deployed quick. How long until we go? Roughly 20 days. That's enough to transport the troops overseas, I think. And we'll get some more of these onto the western frontier. Preparation is very necessary, even though the US only has around 61 divisions. And we already have more than that. Sitting at 63, we'll deploy 100 more, and slowly but surely we'll get there. Accelerate the rearmament program now to ready us for the war, and deploy even more of these divisions. Oh, looks like it's just one for now. Okay, the war goal is now complete, so literally let's just declare. And we'll also move over our ships to the now unlocked US harbors. We still have plenty of time until the end of 1936, that is. And we can still send convoys overseas. They probably won't even sink them. Now you may be asking, how am I going to fight with one cavalry division per each army group? I'm not. These are just template divisions. I can get rid of them. Oh well, we'll do this now. And we'll do this. There we go. Oh, looks like all of our troops are coming into America. So it'll be quick before the Boogaloo starts. Let's get some more mills so that I can get enough infantry equipment, and let's quickly convert all troops. The UK will now send me stuff, as well as all the other democratic nations, in order to supply the inadequacies that I have in my supply lines, which is awesome. Okay, so let's call our allies into the war now, and see how it goes. Since Canada is now in the war, let's quickly revamp this to a garrison focus so that we can occupy everything at once fairly easily, including these areas. Oh, and they're quickly descending upon the US despite them having superior capacity in their numbers, because their equipment doesn't work. And now we can quickly descend to Boston and such. You see how quickly they're occupying everything. Let's expand the garrison area. Do this as well. There we go. And it's only June, and we're halfway down with this country. Keep in mind, we're currently using no air and no navy at all. And this is a late game superpower, so the debuffs from the Great Depression really didn't help. Now we're going to form this to get a war economy without using any political power. And since Japan is busy in China, we'll just march down here and wipe out Los Angeles as soon as we can. Might be helpful to go for San Diego as well. Here and here. Beautiful. They're obviously invading Canada from Alaska, but nobody cares, and Belgium is going to guard against that for some reason. You can see all the different railroads here as they're going along it. Might be helpful to have a few people over here to help us and use that spare political power that we're going to save. going to ask for as much as I can of the US from Britain so that they don't end up getting the war score for the occupations. There we go. Fall of New York, fall of Washington. Yep, 67% war support. Looks good. 19% in Britain's favor. Oh well, and there we go. Just before the end of 1947. Now what can we do? Puppeting them will actually just make them a supervised state. We can take their factories, but this is not good for us. Liberating them obviously won't do anything. We can of course take their navy, but first of all, we just want some of their land. So let's take this and the entire western harbor if we can. Now we can just have martial law policy over it and take as much as we can of the factories and whatnot and the resources. Let's take Texas really quick. This. It's not even draining our war support. No, it looks like we can't take California. Not much of a loss though, honestly. This is a loss though because now we're getting cut off from Washington, I guess. So I don't know why they're being so tough on that, but sure, I guess you can have it. We took the rest, so I guess France got to liberate it instead of the UK. I don't know what that will change. We'll just create two separate states that will merge into one. And unfortunately, we can only take one ship, so I'll take the USS New Orleans since it's a good one. And I'll leave the rest up to the liberated American colonies. So, with the exclusion of exactly 4 states in this run and some distant territories that were now liberated for some reason, we now control the entire United States in September of 1947. And we can, of course, conquer more if we want, just as we run down the focus tree. So, right before we even hit Anschluss, we control the United States. We can still go down our focus tree. We can still do pretty much everything as normal, including going to war with the Allies and founding our own faction. We're just stuck democratic now. That's the only setback. But when you look at this and then you go to harsh quotas, I mean, 136 factories at the start of the game. This is not a bad situation to be in. Let's just quickly disband all our troops so that everything goes to garrison and we can get factories more efficiently. Hindenburg incident, yeah, good one. 136, just went up in a few minutes. 175. We'll even have a state secretary of the colonies to help us. We'll create whatever this is. And there we go. The German Republic and the American Republic, which has now been exiled with Robert Hoff and reluctant interventionist all the way to the West Coast. We'll guarantee him as well, just to make sure Japan doesn't mess with us. And we'll guarantee Mexico since they're no longer protected by the Monroe Doctrine. It's also worthy to say that at this point we can just leave the Allies and we suffer no consequences for it at all. It's also funny what they did to the Philippines. France just took a little bit and the rest was annexed by the UK and now it's, I guess, rose-colored Philippines, I guess. So, whatever. Anyways, that's about it. 100 million non-core population to start a game, and I hope you enjoyed. And tune in to the next one.